Good evening to you all and welcome to this very special interview with the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. She's visiting Morocco for the first time since she's been appointed last October, and it's a great pleasure to have her here with us today. Good evening, Ms. Georgieva.
Bonjour et merci.
What can you tell us about the outcome of your visit to Morocco?
The objectives of my visit were two. One, to get to know the country and engage directly with the Moroccan authorities. Two, to make a step towards the next annual meetings that will be hosted by Morocco. And I can say it was a fantastic first visit. I got the chance to hear more directly what are the aspirations of the government, the pursuit of reforms, where the fund can be most helpful, especially on the fiscal side, in terms of quality of public expenditures, tackling inequality, youth, women. I am so confident that the annual meetings in Marrakesh, when Marrakesh will be the economic and financial capital of the world, would be a resounding success. Not only that, they are bringing a very valuable innovation. And it is the buildings we will have to host us for the meetings will be repurposed and used as schools all over Morocco.
So the annual meetings of the IMF and the World Bank will be held in Marrakesh next October. Was the currency flexibility on your agenda of the visit?
We did talk about it. We are going to have a technical mission coming in March, and there would be the detailed discussions on this and other topics. What I can say on the currency issue is that we support Morocco's very measured and careful approach based on evidence, based on data, in moving from first opening up a band, plus minus 2.5%, then framing a next step, expanding the band, plus minus 5%, and then eventually going to exchange rate that is fully determined by market forces. What we like about this approach is predictability and also caution. The world is more uncertain today than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And the best way to deal with uncertainty is evidence and clear, predictable policy action.
In one of the latest reports on Morocco, the IMF describes and mentions Morocco as a reliable partner that has succeeded in carrying out structural reforms and in respecting the commitment, of course, under the precautionary line and liquidities agreement. But the same report also points out some failures, such as budget deficit, public debt, and low tax revenues. How do you think a country such as Morocco could combine, or let's say maintain, economic balances and response to social emergencies?
First and foremost, Morocco is brave to tackle structural problems that cannot be postponed forever. For example, the measures that have been taken to improve tax collection, the attention paid to eliminating harmful subsidies, not easy and not popular, but necessary and done, and the focus on fighting corruption. I also see...
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is the first time that the IMF, let's say something about the corruption, the sided issue, right?
Well, actually, no. It has become a major topic of concern for the IMF in the last years. Why? Because people are on the street and they're saying, we don't like that. We want governments to be clean. We don't want them to squander our money. And when we look at the cost of corruption, they're high. Money that gets into somebody's pocket doesn't fund a school, doesn't fund a health clinic, doesn't fund jobs. So for the IMF, it is quite a central topic of a good economic development. But just to finish
Yes,
on Morocco, yes, Morocco is faced with deficit, debt. None of those are of the magnitude that they present serious danger to the economy. But of course, they have to be managed. And how is Morocco intending to manage it? By creating good conditions for competitiveness in investments, both foreign direct investments and domestic investments. So there would be higher growth, more jobs, more taxes paid, and by very much focusing on transparency of governance. I really applaud Morocco for e-government. And I hope I would see it when I come next time, fully applied everywhere. Why? Because transparency is the citizen's best friend.
And it's the best weapon against
and
corruption.
the best weapon against corruption. I like to say sunshine is the best disinfectant, and this is what we bring. And two, because e-government also encourages cleaning up unnecessary procedures. And then going to automation that shrinks the size of government apparatus so people can be deployed elsewhere in productive sectors.
Okay, under the royal instructions, an integrated program of support to the entrepreneurship has been launched some time ago, and it's endowed with a budget of 6 billion dirhams. How the IMF intends to support Morocco, creating more jobs, employment, and for entrepreneurship?
We are most helpful in where we are the best, and we are the best in fiscal matters, not only raising revenues, but then using expenditures effectively. So we want to see very high quality of public expenditures. And two, we are very good in demonstrating where there may be obstacles to competition and growth. And we are deploying these competencies here in Morocco. I personally believe that one of the most important measures taken is the attention paid to women. Eliminating legal barriers to women to be entrepreneurs, to women to have access to finance. This is a boost for Morocco that I think we are still to see paying off.
Let's talk about Africa, Ms. Georgieva. One of the major issues is the structural reforms suggested by the IMF had led to, I don't want to say inequality, but inequality is one of the major issues today in Africa. How is the institution tackling those issues today? With the government, of course, with the African governments.
The attention to inequalities has become a central issue for the IMF under my predecessor, Christine Lagarde, and I take it to heart. What it means is for us to pay much more attention to who benefits and who loses from economic reforms. After all, reforms are for people. They are not for the paper on which they are written. And tracing down these benefits and costs, making sure that we have good measures to support those who might be losing from reforms and to provide people with opportunities to improve their lives themselves. We are promoting what I would call a second generation social protection measures. The first generation was primarily putting a cushion. So if you fall, you don't harm yourself. If you fall behind, there is something to help you. Now what we want to see are social safety ropes rather than nets. Help people to help themselves. Much more focus on issues like access to finance, skills, mentorship that allows those who may be on the margins of the economy to step up, help themselves, help their countries.
The other major issue, of course, is debt. For our the people that are following us to know, the African external debt has jumped nearly about 150% in just a decade, which is a huge evolution. What is the position of the IMF toward the emergence of new financial institutions. I don't want to say institutions because there are countries, namely China.
Well, let's first stress that the reasons for debt to climb up in Africa and elsewhere are complex. One of the reasons is low interest rates. They make money cheap in many places, but also these low interest rates have created appetite for high yield, and high yield comes with high risk. So a great chunk of the debt in Africa is not so much China, it is commercial lenders seeking higher return on their money. And then, of course, lack of transparency in debt. When countries borrow, but we don't see the iceberg underneath, we just see the tip of the debt, then this is a very dangerous, very risky road to travel. Over the last couple of years, to a certain degree, because of the alarm bells the IMF, the World Bank, other institutions have rang, debt has stabilized. Since 2016, it is not growing anymore, and yet it is at the level of 55% versus 35% just a decade ago. So that build-up indeed is dangerous, and a slice of this debt comes from China. Let's remember, debt is not necessarily bad. If it is a good investment that generates jobs, lifts up productivity, improves standards of living, it will be paid back from the receipts on that investment. The problem is that not all investments are good. In Africa, we only can trace 60 cents to the dollar in investment. So focus on debt transparency, focus on good debt management, and focus on the quality of investment. All of this is necessary. And what we want is to see new lenders like China or private lenders to be more in the tent when we discuss these issues of debt sustainability. We invite them, and sometimes they do come.
And maybe next October this issue is going to be discussed in Marrakesh.
It is going to be certainly one of the issues on the agenda, yes.
Yes, thank you very, very much for your time, Ms. Kristalina Georgieva. And again, welcome to Morocco. Marhaba.
Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention. That was the very special interview with Managing Director of the IMF in Medi 1 TV and Medi 1 TV Afrique.